From Focal Point Radio and Radio Fairfax in Fairfax, Virginia, this is the Mimi Geerges Show. Pat Buchanan was the treasurer of the United States when her first son, Bill, was born. The media announced, today the U.S. treasurer has issued a new bill. But that fun was to end soon enough. Bay had two boys, ages 4 and 2, and was pregnant with her third when her husband walked out on them. She found herself dumped, her term, into the world of single parenthood. That was over 23 years ago. Now Pat Buchanan is ready to share the trials and triumphs of single parenthood, as well as some unexpected lessons she learned along the way. Her book is called Bay and Her Boys. Pat Buchanan joins me in the studio. Bay, welcome.
Thanks very much, Mimi. Great to be with you.
Bay, what were the circumstances that led to you being a single mom?
Well, my husband chose to leave. It just wasn't working out for him, and so he left, as you mentioned, 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and pregnant with my third. And it was rough. As anyone who's been through a divorce knows, those are very, very rough days. But I was pregnant and probably more emotional than even you would otherwise be. Very rough 6-8 months there.
And did you see it coming, or was it a complete surprise to you?
No, it wasn't a complete surprise. It was a surprise that it came to an end. You know, I knew that he was unhappy in some ways, and I as well, but I figured we would try to make a go of it, especially with the baby coming, and that's kind of where we were headed. But then it just came to a situation where he just walked out.
And so, ironically, he had been married before, had 3 sons, and left.
Isn't that amazing? That's what my dad was so cautious, as all dads are, about especially their daughters. And he was very worried that my husband at the time had actually been married before and had walked away from a family of 3. And it had happened to him in his life with his dad, and he didn't want to see it happening to me or my children, but it did. And that's the key, is once it happens, you spend so much time thinking, what if, oh my gosh, it should have happened this way, what did I do?
This couldn't have happened to me.
Exactly. And you're just so mired in all of that, yesterday's wounds. And that's when I realized, I'd look at those 2 little boys, and I was pregnant with the third, and once he was born, I'm looking in his little face, and I thought, I can't worry about yesterday. I don't care what anyone thinks or who blames whom. It doesn't matter anymore. I have to get myself together. I've got to take charge of my life so that I can take charge of theirs.
And on top of the emotional pain, did you feel a stigma of the divorced single mom?
No question.
Especially in the conservative circles.
Exactly. I came from a world where that divorce was not a word that was often used. I didn't know that many people who were divorced. I was raised in a family of 9, big, strong Catholic family. We knew lots of other big, large families. And if anyone was divorced, it was almost whispered about in my family, just a very sad situation. And so here I was, the one. But I told myself, that next Christmas, a year after the baby was born, I said, I'm sending my Christmas cards right out. I lost one. I lost a husband. I gained a baby, because I didn't want people to think I was going to shy away from being a single mom. I was one. If they want to judge me, if they wanted to make a statement about it, they weren't going to make me feel stigmatized. I was proud to be the mother of those 3 boys. And I just took a large step forward and said, leave it all behind, and let's see what I can do here, because I have an enormous responsibility ahead of me.
How did you explain it to your boys?
They were so little. They knew, the oldest, Billy, knew that their dad wasn't there anymore. Very distraught to see when their dad left or when he visited them, how distraught he was when he came home. Very painful. And anyone who thinks that, kids can get over it and everything's fine, they're just telling themselves what they want to hear, because there is, without question, real suffering that takes place for these little kids, and they internalize it. You're not even sure how they're making sense of it. But what I did is I never told them anything about the divorce. I never blamed their dad. I just always said one thing. He stopped loving me, not you. He always loved you. He still loves you. He always has loved you. This has nothing to do with you, because I didn't want them to have that added strain.
But when you say he stopped loving me, doesn't that make it okay? Don't they internalize that it's okay for a dad to stop loving the mom? And were you afraid that they would do that to their wives?
No, I didn't, because I knew that they wanted to have their dad. They wanted to be close to their dad, and they wanted him in that home. And this is something that I think I learned from my dad. My dad was in his 60s telling me I was a teenager how he remembers the day his dad walked out and the last words he said to him, and how he looked for his dad for years. Down the street, he was a tall red man, and run ahead to see if maybe that was him there, that he could see him again. So I did two things. I never badmouthed their dad, and I gave him every opportunity to have a close relationship, because I knew that if I was really truly going to be a good mom, I had to put them first, not me, but them first. And so what I said to myself is, I'm the most important person in their lives right now, but the second most important person and the most important man is their dad. And it's my job to make certain they have an opportunity to have a close relationship to him. I couldn't give them a dad in the home, but I was going to do my best to give them a dad in their lives. And then showing them and exposing them to families that had two parents, and to give them male role models, male strong father figures in their lives, so that they would know what it would be like to have the father there, to see what it's like, to see the interactions between moms and dads in a home. I really worked on that. So to going back to your point, Mimi, to make certain that when they had children, they would know what it meant to be a dad in the home and how you treat your wife. And the two of them are married, and my gosh, they both have wives that are full-time at home, because I think they wanted their children to have a full-time at home mom. And they oh my gosh, they love those kids so much. And I'm certain that their goal is to be there for the rest of their lives, right there with their boys.
Pat Buchanan is in the studio with me. She's a former treasurer of the United States. She's been a senior advisor on the presidential campaigns of her brother, Pat Buchanan, Tom Tancredo, and Mitt Romney. She's currently a political analyst and columnist, and the book is called Bae and Her Boys: Unexpected Lessons I Learned as a Single Mom. In some cases, the dad doesn't want to have anything to do with his children,
Exactly.
Unfortunately. What does a mom do in that case?
And there are a few cases where it's not even advisable, because there may have been some abuse of some type. And so under those cases, this is where I came from. I knew that all the statistics out there, all the reports showed that children raised in a two-parent home thrive much better than ones who are raised by a single mom. And
there's some scary statistics out there.
They're very
about
scary.
Dropping
Oh my
out
gosh.
of high school, incarceration rates, sexual promiscuity.
Emotional issues, failing in school, it just goes on. And I would see those reports. And so many pundits would go on television and say, see, you have to have a dad. Well, I realized that, but I didn't have a dad, and I wasn't going to be able to provide a dad. And I thought of all the other millions of women who are in the same boat I was, and where was the message for us? And that's why I wrote the book, is how I compensated for that. And I think that's what you have to do. So I went about making certain my kids had exposure to strong men, that we had close friends who had good families or good parents, but had both a mom and a dad in the home. And I put them into all male schools, so they had strong teachers that were males. I did, and of course I had my own brothers, and I was very close to one brother, because my family because he had kids about the same age, so they became very close to him. And I remember taking my youngest, down to spend a couple days with them, because I was flying out of town. And he said, Mom, I just love going to Uncle Buck's. It feels like going home. And that's what I did, is to make certain they were very comfortable in that environment as well.
You talked about the immediate impact of the divorce on the boys. Now looking back over 20 years, what would you say was the long-term impact of the divorce and not having their father?
Well, I wanted to make certain, when I wrote the book, I knew one of the key things was to make certain people understood that I did appreciate the fact that a father has a critical role in their lives. And I didn't want people to miss out that, hey, you can be a single mom, dad doesn't matter, because it does matter. And so I asked my boys to write about how it felt for them, what they felt they missed by not having a dad in the home. And it was very moving. I had no idea what they were going to write. And it's clear to me throughout that time, and even now, that this is a hole in their heart, that they loved their dad, and they wanted to get to know him. They wanted to be close to him. They kind of had plans, which I wasn't aware of, is when they got older, that they would do things with them and become and really feel that relationship much stronger than they did. And unfortunately, he died when they were in high school. The youngest was in 7th grade. And my golly, it was devastating for them, just devastating to miss the opportunity to first have him in the home and then to get them to know him better. They did have some great experiences with him. They flew to California a number of occasions, spent a week each individually, and he would just show them the town, and they do have those great memories. But, you know, looking back, I would say that of all the things I could have done for them, what I didn't do and I most wish I could have was provide a dad in the home. It is a very important relationship, and it changes all the dynamics in the house. I did everything I can, and my message to single moms is you can do it. You can do it well, and you can do it so it's so much fun, and your kids can thrive as well. But you have to sacrifice enormously. You have to take the extra step. You have to take the initiative to make certain your children are exposed to these different good, strong families, that they have male role models. I read somewhere an article that was for single moms, and the advice in it is find other single moms so that you can have you can talk out your problems. And I was like, no. I mean, you may need that, but the kids don't need single mom experiences. They got that. They need 2-parent families, and I think the message to my friends and all the communities that are listening is, if there's single moms in your neighborhood, you could do a lot of good here. You could be that, a parent or a family that invites them over, or the father that takes your boys along with maybe a son from a single parent family along fishing or hiking or camping. I mean,
guy things.
Yeah, guy things with a guy, horsing around with the guys. This is invaluable lessons. I did my best. I went camping, but I got to tell you, I'm lousy at it. I hated every minute of it, and I think the kids are raised hating it too because of me.
The book is called Bae and Her Boys, Unexpected Lessons I Learned as a Single Mom. Bae Buchanan is in the studio with me. Your rule is that, of course, you put your kids first, but there are a lot of single moms who do not have the financial resources to spend a lot of time with their kids. They have to work. They can't turn down the work because they have to support their families. So what do they do in that case?
I don't know many single moms that don't work. There's some fortunate ones out there. I had to work. But the key is you have to know that your job is twofold when it comes to employment. First, you got to make enough to take care of them. Then you've got to have a flexible enough job to be home with them. Now, you can't be home from 9 to 5 if that's your job, or 10 to 7 if that's your job. But you've got to realize without both of those, you can't succeed as a mom. You have to be present there. Now, it could be that you find yourself in a position, you're a single mom, you may have been full-time at home, or you haven't been in the workplace, or you just don't have the marketable skills to have the kind of job you need under these circumstances. The key there, I think, is to recognize you need to get them. You need to put your mind totally on finding the job that provides and is flexible. If you don't have the marketing skills now to transfer to that kind of a job, then get to school at night. Go to community college. I know that means
leaving your kids.
Find a close friend, a parent, maybe your own parent that could. It's a short term to make things work for your kids in the long term. The other thing is, if you have a job where you're making a lot of money, you're doing real well, but you don't want to back away, you may be making a mistake here, because I know attorneys and doctors who realized, listen, I can't climb this corporate ladder. I can't be in a practice and be on call all the time. My kids have to come first. So because they did have marketable skills, they were able to move.
So, Bae, let me ask you this, because you recommend that single moms don't date. Is that really fair?
I think this is the key. And this is what I learned. How many, before we're moms, do we say, I'd put my kids first, of course, And then you become a mom and you think you're putting your kids first, and then you become a single mom and you realize, whoa, this means a whole lot different than I thought. And I dated a terrific guy for about 6 months or so after the divorce, and he wants to go out Friday night and he wants to see me Saturdays, and maybe we play a little tennis. Well, wait a minute. How can I do this? I am working Monday through Friday, and it's a high pressure, trying to bring in the money, getting the clients and keeping them happy, and trying to get home for dinner as often as I can. I'm not going to see him Friday night and Saturdays. That doesn't make sense to me. So I, after a number of months, said, this can't work. This good man deserves more of my attention, and I can't give it to him. And my kids are first. So I have to be home Friday nights, Saturdays, Sundays. That's my time with the kids, and they have to know I'm going to be there, because then
So no dating until they leave home?
I did now. There's, as I say, there's in the book, there is a couple exceptions to the rules. Let's say you're in an office and there's a guy down the hall you meet. Oh, you go to lunch with them. You're able to get to know him without taking time away from the kids. But the key is, once you're going to start dating him outside of work, you have to decide, listen, I'm either going to marry him in the next couple months, or I have to break it off, because what are you going to do? A year and a half? Be away from the kids Friday nights? The key is, it's twofold. Your time with the kid is number one. And number two is, the kids get attached very easily. I told myself, there's no way I'm going to let some man get to know my kids in a way that they would feel and become attached to him unless I knew I was marrying him. And then that would take a long time before I could make that decision. So how could this work? And so I said, this doesn't work. My kids have to know I'm there for them always. And of course, their dad did marry about 2 years after the divorce. He remarried, and they were so distraught over it. That's when I just said, listen, kids, I'm here. It's you and me. This is the family. Anyone else comes in, we all have a say. You guys will know ahead of time, and we'll vote on it.
Pat Buchanan, she's a former treasurer of the United States. She's been an advisor on presidential campaigns for her brother Pat Buchanan, Tom Tancredo, and Mitt Romney. She's a political analyst and a columnist, and the book is Bay and Her Boys. Bay, one rule that you have is to simplify and strip down parenting to the basics. What does that mean? Explain it.
Before I was married, I always wanted to be a mom, always. And I had I would go to church or be in a setting and I'd see children. I think, my kid's going to have pigtails and matching bows, and kids are going to be so well dressed and so well mannered. I just can't wait to have kids.
We all have those dreams.
Yeah, exactly. And then I had kids and I was like, oh my gosh. Then I became a single mom. And that's when I said, listen, swallow all your pride, toss it out. It's done. If you can get them to church, who cares if they have wrinkled clothes, dirty socks, old tennis shoes? Who cares? Just, what's your priority? The priority was get them to church. That was it, or get them to school. And so dinners. At my home, we had 9 kids. My mom had an amazing meal on the table every night. It was homemade. Everything was there, the meats, the potatoes, the vegetables, homemade desserts every single night, 7 nights a week. And often we had friends. So she was cooking for 11, 12, 13, 14 people every night.
That's a restaurant.
Right? Oh my gosh. And I was thinking, well, of course, I have to have potatoes, vegetables, meat, all these things. And I just said, it didn't take long for me to say, this is never happening. I'd have to pick up, Jack in the Box on the way home, call in for the pizza to arrive before I got home. There was just no way I could live up to those expectations, those standards, those very high standards of moms. And it went across the board. I'm very clean. I'd like to have a clean house, orderly house, I should say. And my boys were disaster. The bedrooms were a mess. I was constantly saying, okay, Saturday, let's go clean up your room. Well, after 20 minutes, I'd look and they'd say, we're done. Well, I didn't even notice anything was done. And I finally said, look, this isn't as important as other things. Manners are more important. I can't be on their case all the time. So you live in your sties, if you like. I'm not going to go down the hall, but when I come to bring the clean clothes, make a path to the dresser. That's all I ask. And I said I'll apologize to their wives one day. That's all I can say. I can't do everything. So Mimi, I think the point of that is, don't keep your expectations so high that you're going to fail. If you will simplify things, do things easy as you can, and then focus on the important things, it'll give you the time to do the important things. Otherwise, you're going to be cleaning rooms or on their case and all these in contentious situations. Who cares if you have to pull out of the hamper their Sunday best? Well, so what? So what? Other people are saying things. I don't care.
Okay, now, Bay, I want to ask you something, because your father taught your brothers how to fight.
Yes.
So you decided you were going to teach your sons how to fight.
Yes.
What's going on here?
I have boys. So I think my brothers, that's it. I'll do everything like my father raised my brothers, and I knew without question that when boys go to school, they have to take care of themselves. You can't have mothers coming in and saying somebody hit your son or something. So my oldest went off to kindergarten, and he came home after about 3 or 4 weeks, and he said, "Oh, they're beating me up on the playground, or they're pushing me down. You need to call the school." And I said, no, I can't call the school. This is time. If I call the school, they're going to keep doing it. If you take care of it, they'll stop doing it. I'll tell you how to do it. That's the key. That's what I do. I'm going to show you how to stop this from happening. So I remembered the lessons of my dad, which I saw for so many years. And I got down on the ground and I said, "Okay, jump on top of me." Now, the key is the nose. The nose is the key.
you told them, don't waste your time in the stomach and the chest. Go
exactly.
for the nose.
Go for the nose, because once you get the nose, the eyes start to water and the nose starts to, bleed or be full or whatever. And you can't breathe and they can't see, and then they get upset and they'll stop. Okay? That's the key, the nose. And so they jumped on, I was showing them. And of course, my second son, who was about 4 at the time, was, "Let me have a try. Let me." He was ready for this. But my oldest was basically your pacifist. What if I get in trouble? What if this happens? And I said, "Just tell the teacher I told you to do it. Let me handle it." So, weeks go by, nothing happens. I keep picking him up at school. "So, any stories to tell?" "No, nothing." So I figured, all right.
And he's still being pushed around.
Yeah, yes, but he wouldn't say anything. He did say to me, I think a couple times, "Yes, he did. Can you call?" And I said, "I told you, I'm not going to call. This is for you, Billy.
Yeah.
You have to learn.
You lose
how to
all
do this."
respect if that
Exactly.
happens.
So this is yours, kindergarten kid. So he comes. So I pick him up one day. He says, "I did it, Mom. I did it." And I said, What do you mean you did it?" He says, I did what you said. I hit him in the nose." I said, "Oh my gosh!" I got so excited, Mimi. I drove him over to Taco Bell. I said, "Here, you order your meal. I'll order something, and sit down. And now tell me it from right up from the beginning." So he tells me he's on the playground and they're pushing him, and so finally he says, "I pushed him back, and I pushed him right up against the school building, and then I punched him right in the nose." And I said, "That's terrific." And what happened then? She started to cry. I said, She? And I just was dying. My father no one was allowed to touch a girl. My brothers were never allowed to touch me.
You had no idea it was a little girl bullying
because
him.
he always said them. There was a bunch of girls. He was a cute kid. This was probably their way of flirting. And he punched them out. And I said, "What did you tell the teacher?" He said, "I told him you told me to do it." And I just thought, okay, Billy, well, this was my fault. Okay, I forgot to tell you a little point here. You never hit girls, never. And drove him home waiting for the phone call.
So, Bay, you also encourage moms to be a parent and not a friend.
Yes. This is really important. And it's so much easier to be their friend. Who doesn't want to, say, "How'd it go tonight, honey?" And, "Oh, you're so cute in what you're wearing," and all of this. It's imperative that you are the person of authority and that you establish rules in the home and then that you enforce them. Single parents, this is particularly important too, because you are the only person of authority. It's not like you can be their friend and their father can be the authority. You are it. And I think that the kids really thrive when they know what the rules are and they know there's consequences. So you let them know up front. Kids respond to that. They respond to discipline. They respond to rules. And then when they go outside the rule, you have to punish them. You have to let them know, "I'm sorry, consequences to your action." These are lessons for life. This is what they need to learn young.
But what do you do with outright defiance? "I'm not going to do it and you can't make me."
Oh, I've heard that one. Now, it depends on the age, of course. When I had my 3-year-old, that is when my oldest one, he was anything but defiant. He was as sweet as he could be up till he was 13. But the second one, he wanted to take over the house. There was going to be a coup in that house. And I could see it. And I would take him to his room and I'd say, "Okay, time out. You're going into your room." And he'd come back out. And I'd say, "Get back in." And so he'd open the door and say, I'm coming out. And I'd be like, and to get him up into his room, I dragged him and he'd hold the railings on the steps and I had to pull him. So I realized, no, he has to know now that there is somebody in charge and it is not him. And so I spanked his thigh. I hit his little thigh and he hit me. And I thought, well, this isn't. So I hit him again, and he hit me again. I was like, okay, this isn't working. I knew I had to escalate. And so I got the brush. I have one of those flat bottom brushes, and I spanked his little thigh with that. And that, of course, is, a little sharper. He was completely taken back. And so then I think I used that on him, threatened many times, but used it on him maybe once more when he really knew I meant it. And from then on, he was a defiant kid. He was on little soccer team, and he said, I'm not going to play anymore. And I told him, you sign up, but then you play the whole season. There is no quitting in our family. There's just none. And he said, I'm going to walk right off the field. So I said, yeah, see this brush? I'll have it in my purse. And he started to come off the field, and I showed him the brush. He went right back on the field. You have to take charge. When they're teenagers, it's different. One said, I think I'm grounded for life. I'm not sure. I really let them know. If they would come and say, okay, I got in trouble, what's the punishment? They knew there's consequences. So that's how I kept as much control as I could in that family.
You've been involved in Republican politics for a long time. How do you think the Republican Party has done when it comes to supporting single moms?
And that's a very good question, because that's why I wrote the book. The first thing is, this book is written for all parents, especially all single parents. I don't care what your philosophy, political philosophy or background or education, doesn't matter, because I really wrote this book to help other single moms. And as I say in the opening, when I was a single mom and had those little kids at home, how many times did I see friends of mine going on television with all the latest statistics that we spoke about that are so frightening and which clearly state it's far better for children to be raised in a two-parent home? I kept saying to myself, yeah, but okay, I agree. Now, how about the other part? What if you can't have a dad in the home? What do we do? Don't you want our kids to succeed? Do you have some instruction, some encouragement, some hope, some guidance for us as we could compensate for not having a dad so our kids could thrive? And there was nothing. It was nothing there. But in fairness, the left did no better. The left came in and said, well, they're victims. You need government help. And I'd say, I don't need any government help. I don't need government telling me how to raise my kids. I need opportunity. I need jobs, clearly, but everybody needs that. And the strongest people I know are single moms, doing it all, putting it all together and giving their whole life and soul to those children of theirs. So I really didn't see maybe a message for us, one that would say, you can do it, and not only that, you have to do it. These are your kids we're talking about, and you have to do everything you can. So I wrote this book to tell my story, to let them know that you can do it, and it can be a lot of fun. I know that it's tough. I know it's brutally challenging at times, but the key is, read this book. It's an upbeat, positive message. You can be a great parent to your kids. You can be the person they need so that they can be the person they're meant to be. Maybe the bottom line is, I was a far better parent because I was a single parent.
Pat Buchanan, she's a former treasurer of the United States and has been a senior advisor on presidential campaigns for her brother Pat Buchanan, Tom Tancredo, and Mitt Romney. The book is Bae and Her Boys, Unexpected Lessons I Learned as a Single Mom. It's published by DeCapo Press. Bae, thanks so much for being on the program.
Delighted, Mimi. Great to have a chance to talk with you.
Email me your comments or questions to feedback@mgshow.org and join us on Facebook and Twitter. You can support this program through a variety of ways. Just visit mgshow.org and click on the link that says Support.